Alright, so this is an excerpt from my honest piece. I cut it down to make it more entertaining, but also it might make less sense. We'll see. It's called There They Hang. After a few hours, we've collected the suicides and hung them on the wall that faces the double windows. We've hung accidental deaths near the back, and victims of murder and manslaughter in the main room. Natural deaths, particularly old age, never get much attention, so we've put them along the wall near the bathrooms. There's one girl we're having trouble categorizing. She was in a famous choir and was mauled by dogs. Accidental, my wife says. I click my tongue and look at the girl. Her arms are wedged over a white trolley. She hangs like a stiff coat. She has blonde hair and thin legs. The dress that was sent with her is a little short, so I pull it down to preserve her modesty. She looks like a sweet kid, like maybe she would have grown up to be decent. We put her with the victims. I say, the dogs probably meant to kill her. The gallery isn't large, and we've suffered a few quiet months lately. My wife has borrowed a significant amount of money from her brother Tom, so he can make rent here and keep up with the mortgage at home. He owns 3 successful car dealerships. He doesn't understand why I'm struggling. He stops by and says, "Guess how many bloody cars I sold this morning?" He doesn't wait for my answer, saying right away, "A whole fuckload of cars." "How many of these dummies have you sold?" Last week I fired the cleaner, taking on those duties myself. It's a problem because it means I have less time to source new work, but really there's no alternative. My wife has also started coming in to help after her shifts finish at the dealership. The only current pieces that have garnered any interest are an engineer from Albany, which the mayor of Albany is considering purchasing, and a female Formula One racer. I thought I might have had a buyer for her last week. A man carrying a green handbag stood in front of her for quite some time. I approached him, and he seemed to consider the number I proposed, but he has yet to return. It's not all hopeless. A young widow named Vanessa rang earlier this week to organize a meeting for her husband Liam. He was an actor who was beginning to make a name, beginning to get recognized. A former employee of mine gave her my number. The gallery he's now working at originally purchased the rights to her husband, but after hearing her desires for how she wanted him hung, they turned her away. The commission from the sale of a young, attractive actor can support a gallery like mine for a year. I'm standing in front of the little girl now. Something about her posture is wrong. My wife calls from down the hall, "I've tied all the feet. Do you want me to secure them in now?" I'll do it in the morning, I call back. She comes and stands beside me. There's sweat stains beneath her arms. She says, "We'll have time before Vanessa gets here?" "Yes, we'll be fine." The next day I walk to the gallery. It only takes about 20 minutes. The tough boots, tough hearts, tough mutters, tough pathway extends out over the river. They've cut long rectangular holes into the concrete and filled them with a clear plastic, so that when I walk I can see the blocks of river beneath my feet. The water is grey and dirty, and on some days it's difficult to tell where the plastic ends and the concrete begins. When I arrive at the gallery, there's a man in brown shorts and a brown polo standing at the door. He's staring up at the sky. I clear my throat and he turns. "Hello, sir," he says. "Sign here, please." He holds out a clipboard. "What is this?" "Hang on," he says. He hops down the stairs and goes to his van. He comes back with a little binder, which he holds close to his face. "Body," he says. I say, "Who was the sender?" "I'm sorry," he says. "The logbook got wet yesterday. The name's all smudged up." He holds it out as proof. From the blob, I think I can make out a few letters. "All right," I say, and I sign. He walks back down to the van and lowers out a long silver container about the size of a coffin. He rests one end in his trolley and straps the container close to the trolley's back. I open the doors and gesture for him to leave it beside the reception desk. The containers have a 38-hour cooling seal, so I plan on leaving the body until after the meeting with Vanessa. Plus, keeping it out means she might think I've got a number of other projects, and it's always good to be thought of as in demand. I've undressed the short scientist on my workbench. I press a lever with my foot and raise the body to the same height as my elbows. I'm one of the few gallerists who still aligns the nails by touch rather than scanner. I begin feeling around his pelvis, pressing lightly, searching. The ilium nail is the most important fixture. It holds the legs in place, helps distribute the weight away from the nails in the head and shoulder blades. If I miss with the ilium, I can corrupt the posture of the body. There was an incident in Sydney where a touring wrestler died after falling from a ladder. He was competing in the Mayhem for Detroit WWF fundraising Snakes and Ladders free-for-all. The fall was confirmed as the cause of death, but the doctor said that the venom from the snake bite certainly played a part. The wrestler was hung incorrectly by one of the gallery's interns. In the middle of the show, his shoulders slid off their hooks. If the nail in his head had fallen loose, then he would have just slumped onto the floor. But the nail stayed true. There was a moment when he was still in the air. His chest barreled out, one last proud moment. Then his feet came free, and the full weight of him pulled against the strength of the nail in his head. Some witnesses swore that the wrestler made a sound as his face tore. The gallerist didn't try and restore the piece. With permission from the family, she removed the head and sold the 3 items separately. The body to an Arabic businessman, the facial skin to a musician in Perth, and the skull to an American politician who used it as a part of a roast speech. All told, the family probably made more money from the items being sold apart than if they'd sold the wrestler whole. I feel the ridge that means I've gone too far. I backtrack a few inches. The coroner hasn't shaved the scientist as well as he should have. My fingers brush over the coarse knobs of his grey pubic hair. I press down hard and feel the thick part of the bone. I mark the point on his skin with a felt pen and take one of the drill bits on the wall behind me. The flesh offers no resistance, like pushing your finger into soft sand, but the force I have to put on the drill to penetrate the bone always makes me sweat a little. I'm through the skin and flesh on the first mark when the drill sticks. I put it into reverse and try again. People say that my workshop must smell like a butcher, but the bone being drilled smells more like freshly cut timber. I hear a crack. I swear and pull the drill out. The bit has snapped off. It protrudes from the scientist like a dart. The intercom on the wall buzzes. A few hours later, I'm sitting at the front desk and all the lights are off. The shadow of my wife is fumbling with her keys outside the gallery door. She unlocks it and steps inside. "Hello," she says. "You here?" "Hey," I say. "Shit." She turns on the light. "Why were you sitting in the dark?" "Vanessa stopped by." "And?" "7 pieces, and we keep 50% of the sale." 50%. My wife starts biting her nails. "Wow," she says, "wow." "How does she want him hung?" "It's hard to explain," I say. I gesture over to the silver container the courier delivered earlier. "Is that him?" She stands and walks over. "Have you opened it yet?" I shake my head. "What condition is he in? Will you have to do much work?" "A little bit. Hard to say." She pops the seal. There's a hiss from the opening. After taking out all the parts and lying them on a plastic sheet that I've dragged into the foyer, my wife and I find that the container is filled with 7 left arms. She's swearing and pacing all around, and I'm bent down inspecting them. They're mixed gender, mixed age. A few of them have wedding rings on. A few have twee tattoos of images from Liam's films. My wife keeps swearing. As promised, Liam's wrist has a yellow ribbon tied around it. I remove his arm from the others and take it into my workshop, leaving it on the scientist's bare chest. When I return, my wife is placing the arms back into the container and shaking her head. "Who are these people? This is fucked up." "Fans." My wife pauses. Then, "Did they kill themselves?" She sits down by the desk. "I don't know," I say. We don't speak for a while. Occasionally she looks over her shoulder at the container. "When are we showing?" she says. "Next week." She closes her eyes. "I know," I say. "I know. Thanks."